Today on With the First Pick, we're still in Indy, Rick, and we have another guest. Our guy Emory Hunt has joined us. Emory filled in while you were doing one of your side jobs last month, so we did a little mock draft action, and our guy Spencer Rattler went higher than you probably wanted him to go, but that's okay. Before we get going, we're going to talk a little winners, losers in terms of the defensive backs working out today. The tight ends worked out today. But, Rick, as we record the podcast, the tight ends have yet to run their 40s, so we'll try to fill you in real time as Debo relays the numbers to us. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about. But first things first, Rick, how many days until the 2024 NFL Draft?
Are we at 55?
We are at 55.
Emory, there are 55 days into the 2024 NFL Draft.
And just so we're clear, Emory, thank you for joining us. And I don't know which one of you two I'm more fed up with at this point in the day because we're doing it late in the afternoon, and Rick is on one, and Emory, you're on one too, but that's okay. So we're going to talk winners and losers, pop or drop, however you like to call it. I'm going to give us some guys that we were excited about as a group, and we can go through them, highlight some of the guys we're really excited about. So Nate Wiggins, the cornerback out of Clemson. Terrion Arnold, the cornerback out of Alabama. Tyler Owens out of Texas Tech. Doesn't believe in planets or space, but he can sure jump. Cornerback Mikey Sanderstill, the nickelback out of Michigan, had a great season. Cole Bishop, the safety out of Utah, and then my guy Dwight McGlothern, as you noted, LSU transfer at Arkansas, cornerback there as well. And Emory, Emory's got to keep the small school guys in the news. Willie Drew out of Virginia State had a great combine. Jarvis Brownlee and Josh Newton as well. So, Emory, tell us one of your guys or anyone from that list that you want to highlight in terms of having a good day on the field over at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Well, it was Jason Brownlee. Jarvis Brownlee, out of Louisville. His defensive back coach, Steve Ellis, is a fantastic coach. Has coached a lot of guys that have gone on to the NFL. And we forget that he missed 5 games this year with an ankle injury. And he goes out to the Senior Bowl, has a great week. He goes out here, and I thought the drills he did were excellent. You didn't see the ball hit the ground, so he catches well. He has great ball skills, great instincts. And I know from watching him play, he's a very tough player. So I thought he worked out well today, especially in the wave drill where a lot of DBs had trouble tracking the ball. He did a great job today.
Hey, Rick, how important are these drills? I mean, we know the guys run a 4.3, and that gets us super excited. But if they catch the ball in the gauntlet, if they look like they move fluidly in space, does that change your opinion in one way or another?
Yeah, well, they don't just run in a straight line. If you actually watch a DB, they actually backpedal. They don't run straight forward. So that's where all these drills
That's why I was a bad cornerback in high school.
Yeah, you kept running forward when you needed to backpedal.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
So when you see them, can they drop their hips? Are they ankle stiff? Can they get in and out of their transition? Can they turn their hips? Can they track the ball down the field? Some of the stuff and why these drills came about was what you want to see when they play. And when you watch some of the college tape, you may not see them do some of the things you see in these drills.
So let's say a cornerback drops 90% of the balls in the gauntlet drill. Do you care or not?
You don't care as long as he's batting them down. But it'd be nice. It'd be nice for him to catch a couple instead of get hit in the mouth with a football. But other than that, no, they don't. You would like them to catch, but more importantly, do they have the ball instincts and awareness to at least bat the ball down? To
at least be at the catch point. By the way, producer Debo notes in terms of your backpedaling comment about the cornerbacks. Quinion Mitchell, who ran a 4.33 today at 6 feet, 195, reached the 2 fastest speeds by any cornerback during the backpedal and transition 45-degree reaction drill, almost 21 miles per hour on both. What does that say about Quinion Mitchell, who we've just talked about pretty much nonstop since the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, no, that tells you his transition. That tells you when he's changing direction. When he can flip his hips open, he's not losing any speed. There's no hesitation. A lot of times when you're watching these corners and they're stiff in the hips, it takes them a while to gear down and then to gear back up. He was smooth out of his transition, smooth out of his turns, and didn't lose any acceleration.
I mean, he has been so good throughout the process that our guy Emory doesn't even consider him a small school guy. He's not even on Emory's radar. He's gone from big school, even though he's a MAC guy. Let me ask you about Terrion Arnold at Alabama, who's a big school guy. Only ran a 4.5, but he had a 37-inch vert. You don't care about the 4.5, I don't think? I don't either. Do you care at all about that? And number one and number two, because sometimes our rankings differ, do you have – who's your cornerback one, and where did Quinion and Terrion rank in those?
Still working through the list of QB1 and where they're ranking, but as far as Arnold and his 4.5, I don't care about the 4.5. Yeah. I'd rather see the fluidity because it's a game of short area bursts. And can you transition well? Can you flip your hips like Rick talked about? And Arnold, even when we're watching Alabama in terms of just the passing game and just watching them in viewing on a Saturday, you notice that he was standing out a lot more than Kool-Aid McKinstry. And to me, he was someone that, hey, he has the ability to transition. He can play in your hip pocket. He can stay where he needs to be and be in great position to make a play on the ball. And you like that he can tackle. So for me, the 4.5 is just cosmetic. It's the fluidity in the hips, and he showed that in the drills as well.
I don't think this affects his draft stock at all.
No, and we talked about it. Brian Branch didn't run from Alabama. He ran 4.58, but he was smooth and fluid in these drills. And I thought Terrion Arnold was the smoothest as far as getting out of his transition, flipping his hips, accelerating out of his transition, out of any DB here today.
You talked earlier on HQ that Nate Wiggins, the cornerback out of Clemson, who ended up weighing 173 and being 6'1.5". Let me ask you this first. When you looked at him on tape, how much did you think he weighed?
173.
Probably 185, maybe?
173.
Oh, you got it right. Okay. I thought 185. I didn't think he'd be that light.
You're the worst estimate person I've ever been around.
I said Miles Murphy out of Clemson last year was 5'11". Apparently he's 6'5", so I got that one wrong. But in terms of Nate Wiggins, you made this point earlier that maybe teams, I don't know if it's a trap or not, we'll find out, fall into the trap of comparing him to Emmanuel Forbes, out of Mississippi State last year, who was 166. Great tape, great ball skills, struggled mightily at Washington, and there are a number of reasons for it. I don't know if it was all because of his size. I think a lot of it was confidence. Is it fair to compare the two if you're trying to draft a cornerback early, or is this completely different?
I'm just saying that will be brought up in the draft meetings, and because of Emmanuel Forbes struggling this year. But, when I watched the tape on him, I thought he was the best man-cover corner coming out in this year's draft. I still think he's improved as a tackler, but he's not a great tackler, and I'd still like to see him a little bit more physical. I don't know if you're going to play a cover 3 or cover 2 and just have him play in zone coverage, if that's going to be his forte. If you have him up there and press and let him run, but you're still going to have to be able to match up against physical receivers in this league. And Emmanuel Forbes, for as great of ball skills as he had coming out of college, he struggled with that this year.
And that's the thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I was getting ready to say, you think about the guys that we're talking about. People view slot receivers as these smaller guys, but even the slot receivers are 6 feet, 218. So no matter where you try to move a corner, you're going to have to deal with physicality in today's game. So, and I thought he was just more of a natural corner than Forbes was. Forbes was like a react, drive on the ball, drive on a bubble screen, someplace like that. But Wiggins does play a little bit better, more natural at the position. But you got to be physical, because at some point you're going to have to get into a physical discussion with somebody out there on the field.
And he was more physical this year. You would admit that, right?
He was better.
Okay, well, that's the arrow's going in the right direction at least.
Yes.
Okay.
Your estimates aren't, but he is.
Nate Wiggins, 6'8", 210-pound cornerback. You don't see that every day. All right, let's talk about we got to get some small school guys in here. We don't have Emory on here without bringing up one of his dudes. Willie Drew out of Virginia State. I was introduced to him at the Senior Bowl. He had a great week, and Rick and I talk about this a lot. When you look like you're not out of place, that's a great place to start when you're in Mobile, Alabama. What did he do to help himself today?
He ran fast. He ran the 40 twice, both in the 4.4s. Unofficial, but officially 4.56. Good time for him. I was on a broadcast for their Week 1 game against Norfolk State, the wild ending that went viral. And he had Andre Pergis, who's a very good receiver at Norfolk State. He's going to be a draft prospect next year. Had him in witness protection, had him in lockdown. Wanted to fight him at some point during the game because he couldn't get open. He had interception, ball skills, and also return ability. So you look, fast forward to the Senior Bowl, and I thought he started off a little bit rocky, but got better as the week went on. That's what you want to see from a Division II kid coming from the HBCU ranks. So coming out here, unofficially ran that 4.4, but officially 4.56. I think he plays faster than this, and he has ball skills. I'm all in on Willie Drew.
So the 4.56 doesn't concern you?
Not at all. It's about ball skills. Can you score? Can you take the ball away? He could definitely take the ball away.
And Rick, he didn't look slow in the one-on-one drills, and we just talked about Brian Branch 4.58. Does the 4.56 get your attention as a Division II player?
A little bit,
yeah.
Because you want those smaller school guys to really stand out in the 40, because then you're going to say, well, he's doing that, but he's doing it against 7.47 receivers at that level. So, and just my first impression of him, I just went back and watched. I haven't studied him like you, but I think he was very raw in his technique. But he does have the athleticism, and he is very smooth athletically into and out of his transition. I wish he would have ran a little faster today, just because when you're in that meeting, and I'm talking to a coach, and I say, listen, this guy's a pretty good player. Well, would he run? That's the first thing out of a coach's mouth.
Right.
And you're going to say, well, he didn't run in the 4.4s. Where did he play? Virginia State. Well, he's covering 4-7 receivers, so how do you know he's going to be able to cover these dudes up here who he's going to have to play against? But a lot of times those guys come in and end up making it because they are, even though they may be a little raw technically, they have some tools and athletic skills to work with. And what we got to the point was, in our meetings, we had analytics be able to break these guys down and try to bring them up from the rest of the heap that may be lower round picks.
Right.
And if there were specific traits that they were able to identify, whether it was physical testing, whether it was psychological testing, they were able to say, hey, take another look at this guy. Maybe that 4, 5, 6 what he ran is not as important, but the analytics, for example, come in, the flying 20. From the 20 and 40 was the most critical part of the 40 for a corner for us. And I don't know what that time is, but they would say, listen, he was one of the fastest flying 20s, which would also elevate him up to make sure we take another look at him. Other times, if he does not ping all the analytics stuff, especially a small school kid, then he would get buried in the backboard.
How would you handle this? Because this was interesting. I noticed out there today watching these guys work out. He ran the 40, saw the unofficial times, both were in the 4.4s, but he didn't do the workout drills. I don't know if he got injured or whatnot, but how would you use that against him? Like, hey, why didn't you work out?
You're from Virginia State.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Well, unless he was injured, then I can understand that. But if he wasn't injured, how many people are going to go to Virginia State for the pro day?
Bingo.
When you are on national TV, when you have every evaluator in the NFL here, and you got to go out, a chance to go out and showcase yourself, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, assuming he wasn't injured, but right, that's right. All right, I'll mention one last name. We'll take a quick break here. My guy, and by my guy, I mean your guy. We talked about over the summer, Javon Bullard, the nickelback out of.
It was my guy that became your guy.
100%. I will give you credit for that. 5'10", 198, ran a 4.47. Unofficial. I'm not sure if it's official yet. We talked about him as a possible first-round pick. I think he's a top 60 pick.
Oh, yeah, by far now.
Yeah. Tough player, had a great season. I thought he had a great Senior Bowl. His teammate Tyke Smith ran a little faster than he did, but we were talking Javon plays faster, I think, on the field than Tyke Smith does.
Yeah, no, because he can play Nick. I think people look at him as that Nick safety, kind of like Detroit used Brian Branch last year.
Right.
And he ran faster than Brian Branch. He's physical. The one thing that I was a little concerned about coming out of the Senior Bowl is when you watch him in one-on-ones, he did struggle versus the quicker, faster receivers. But all of a sudden you put him in an 11-on-11 or a team situation, he's a totally different player. So there are a lot of guys that may not look good in one-on-one situations, but when you play the game, all of a sudden something clicks in them, and they become really, really good football players, better football players than individual athletes. But he dispelled that myth a little bit today on how well he tested athletically.
Yeah. So credit to Rick for finding him. I'll give you a gold star for that one.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about some guys who probably wish they had better afternoons, but they have 55 days to sort this thing out. We'll talk about that right after this. All right, we're back. Let's talk about some guys who struggled, is a kind way to put it. Emory, I'll come to you first. Isaiah Johnson, the defensive back out of my hometown, Syracuse. 6'3", 205, yes and yes. 4'6", 40, not so much. So what are we doing with Isaiah Johnson?
Moving him to safety, and right off the bat, because he was.
Is that too slow for safety?
But he was running in the corner. You think about some of these safeties now, and in a CFL they call it halfback position, but you're playing down in the alley where he's close to the line of scrimmage. He's a physical guy. He was a 4-year starter at Dartmouth and transferred instead of coming out and transferred to Syracuse. But this is why that could be a tricky thing, because now you probably stood out at Dartmouth in the Ivy League playing for a great coach, the late great Buddy Tevens, but now you're going to Syracuse where your athleticism has to match up, and running at 4.6 and watching it looked 4.6. So he's not going to be a corner. He's going to have to play sort of that strong safety down in the box type role. But now you have a guy that can cover these bigger tight ends, these more athletic tight ends. He give you some matchup capability, but because he ran slow, he can't be on the outside, in my opinion.
The only thing I've experienced this a lot, is when you take a corner and you move him to safety or that hybrid role, that's a whole different animal now, because the intelligence part, the ability to see, when you're a corner, you're on one edge side of the field. But now you got to play both sides of the field, and a lot of times it takes time in that transition because of the position that you're playing.
Well, let me ask you about Cam Kitchens then, because he played safety, deep safety a lot for the U. We talked to him on set, and we both liked look what he had to say and the edge with which he said it. He ran a 4.64, 5'11", 203, and we talked about this earlier in HQ, and you're like, well, okay, maybe he has to move closer to the line of scrimmage at 4.64. Is that a possibility, given that he didn't do that consistently, given that he's only 203 pounds? Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, but when you watch him, this dude likes to come up and light people up.
That's true.
So there's no question about if he gets closer to the line of scrimmage, he can have an impact. And what we talked about earlier was, a guy like we found, Josh Metellus out of Michigan, didn't run well, worried about if he has to play deep half or single high safety because of the range and some of the athletic limitations. I thought Kitchens was better coming downhill than sometimes when he had to flip his hips. We talked about that with him when he was on the stage and whether that was his fault or not.
One of the touchdowns against Drake May.
Yeah, and that was Tez Walker that blew by him. So those are the things, but I think now with the way the NFL is evolving, and like I said, I'm relating to two guys that I've been around, Javon Curse, who's now playing in Dallas. It's Jaron. Sorry. Jaron Curse and
he yelled at me.
Yeah, and Josh Metellus. Both of those guys may not have been the fastest, but there's this hybrid type safety / dime linebacker position that they're finding roles on defenses.
So Cam Kitchens was probably top 75 at various points during the season. Is he top 75 now, or are we looking at Saturday?
I think it may be a fourth rounder now that you're looking at him.
Let me follow up with this, and I want to get Emory's thoughts as well. Talanoa Hufanga probably should have been a day 2 pick. He went in round 3 because of the physical things that happened at the combine, and I thought he played with his hair on fire. Cam Kitchens feels like a Hufanga type player potentially. Does that sway your opinion on when we draft him or no?
Yeah, well, some people will, some people won't. Some people put such a big emphasis on the 40 time at that position.
Yeah.
A lot of it, I think, is schematic too. And if you're going to have these guys play, like I said, deep center field and have to flip their hips and run with the Randy Mosses of the world or the Tyreek Hills of the world, they don't have a chance. But there are certain guys that fit certain schemes that end up being really good football players. So when you're looking at these guys that are borderline fast, teams will go, how does he fit in our scheme? And I'll ask a coach, how do you use him to make sure he has success with what we're going to do on defense? And if a coach tells me, even though we like him as a football player, he may be good in another scheme, but he's going to struggle in our scheme, then you move on from him.
What do you think about the 4.64 for Cam Kitchens? I mean, his tape is really good, but the 4.64 is what it is.
Y'all both touched on it. And for me, the question would be, how is his instincts? Is his instincts 4.3? Then we could find a way for him. You touched on Brian Branch is a great example, and even Hufanga, that's another great example. They play like they're 4.3. Where you're seeing their 40, like there's no way he ran this. He plays faster than that. So as long as he's playing faster than this, I'm good with it because his instincts will help get him to the ball quickly.
I have a new loser for you. Breaking news as we're doing this live from producer Debo. Brock Bowers has decided he is not working out.
5th round.
Drop him.
5th round. I thought you said good for him. Are you okay with him working out or not working out?
I've seen enough Brock Bowers. I'll take him early. He's a good player.
How do you feel about
this
that?
New age stuff. Just go out there and play.
We've seen him play, and he's played like a top 5 pick.
Go out there and compete.
All right, your guy who did compete today, Kalen King, the cornerback out of Penn State, ran a 4.61, and we've talked about him since the summer where we thought he had a chance to be a top 32 guy, and now he's not going to be a top 32 guy.
No, and he keeps spiraling the wrong way. It started with the season, started with the game against Ohio State. Marvin Harrison Jr. started at the Senior Bowl when you've seen receivers running by him out of his turn, and it continues the downward spiral after that 4.61 today.
I don't know how you stop the spiral at this point. You have your pro day left, and I guess your agent can try. What if an agent has to do?
Okay, all this BS about going to run. I'm going to run on my pro day. If you're fast, you're fast.
Hey,
if you're not fast, you're not fast. It is.
Not work out
so all of a sudden, do you think like a Cam Kitchens, for example, who ran 4? Do you think he's all of a sudden going to run a 4.3?
Right.
He may run a little faster, maybe 4.58. Does that make you feel better?
Yes.
No, they are what they are. They're either fast or they're not fast. You can go trade and do all the other BS these guys do. Come here and run, get it over with, and you never have to run another. God, that just drives me nuts. I'm sorry.
You almost said a naughty word, I think.
No, I did not.
Emory, just so we're clear, when they roll the ball out, Rick wants you to compete, but if you're slow, just quit running. Is that right?
Okay, yeah, but if you're not going to run here, and I waste thousands of dollars
to get there,
and you run the same damn time you would have ran here, and cost me $1,000, that's going to really tick me off.
That's where I was going to go, because like, okay, fine, let's go to your pro day. You come out and run a 4.61. You off my draft board. Like, go play basketball.
No,
somewhere.
I'm going to ask if I can get reimbursed from your agent.
All right, Rick is on one. Emory, he is done. All right, we're going to take a quick break and give Rick a drink of water. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some happier things that we were able to do today, talking to these quarterback interviews. And we'll do that right after this. All right, Rick's had a drink of water. He feels a little better.
No, I don't.
All right, it was warm water, for being honest, but that's okay. All right, let's talk about the quarterbacks, Rick, because we had a very nice conversations with all the quarterbacks here. Let's start at the top with Caleb Williams, who's going to the presumptive first overall pick. You and he shared a ginger beer. If you haven't seen that yet, go to YouTube. You can see these two weirdos drinking ginger beer like they're chugging actual beer. What was your biggest takeaway from Caleb Williams?
How humble he was with us, and how impressive he was as an individual. And you know, even when we talked to him about the Notre Dame game, how he took responsibility. So he wasn't a diva. He didn't come across as he knew everything. He talked about how he had to improve. And when he talked to Coach Riley on getting better when things are struggling, and I think he matured as he went through the adversities that he went through this year.
And one of the knocks on him publicly, it feels like the talking points that may or may not be true, that he's not coachable. I got the sense that he was coachable based on his conversations with Lincoln Riley that he relayed to us.
Yeah, and I bet you if you talk to all the teams, or maybe he only did 3 teams, who knows, because he wouldn't only do 3 teams, medicals for 3 teams, which is a whole other thing that I don't want to go on a tangent on. But I bet you they were pretty impressed with him as an individual, and I'd be curious to see it, and I think he would be very impressive if you're sitting there talking football with him.
Well, that is impressive. You're going to be very angry to learn that Emory has Caleb Williams as his QB6.
That's perfect.
No, he's a QB1.
Yeah, QB1. Yeah. And I like that he's a gamer. You know, to do what he did at Oklahoma on short notice in that situation, in that particular game, the Red River rivalry, took me a long time to get that together, and to go out to USC and did what he did out there. So, yeah, he's my QB1. He's outstanding as a talent.
And, you know, Caleb is divisive in some sense in terms of people either love him or hate him, usually for reasons that don't make sense, but that is the world we live in. Another player that's similar to that is J.J. McCarthy, and he doesn't have nearly the amount of throws as just about every other quarterback that we're going to talk about, but when he had that opportunity, he took full advantage of it. I'm now coming around to – Rick's been on the J.J. train for quite a while. I'm now coming around to him being top 15, probably higher than that, and probably QB4. Where are you on J.J. McCarthy?
I'm a positive guy by nature, right? So
I feel a butt coming on.
Everyone looks at his number of throws and thinks, oh, he doesn't throw enough, they're hiding him. But people forget that, you know, football's been around a long time. The same talk used to be about with option quarterbacks coming out of Nebraska and all these triple option offenses. They say, well, they didn't throw a lot. Well, think about it from this perspective. If we're asking him to throw 15 times a game, that's a lot of pressure on those 15 throws, and you better complete 13 of those 15 throws, and that he was able to do that. So when they called on him, hey, we need you to make a play here, passing the ball, he did it. He was consistent. He was accurate. So I don't look at the number of throws as a negative. I look at it as like there's a lot of importance. If you're throwing the ball 40 times, yeah, you have the luxury of missing 15 of those. But if you're throwing 15, you better connect on 13, and he was able to do that.
Are you taking him in the first round?
I am not taking him in the first round. I will take him in the second round.
I
will take him, but I understand those that do, especially those later in the first round, because he's a championship pedigree guy. And here's the thing: you guys brought up the Michigan game last year against TCU. The 2 late and outside throws that went back for touchdowns. He righted those wrongs this year. He was much more. He was smarter with the ball. He was much more judicious in when he was going to take a risk, and he was able to connect on those deep throws that were underthrown in that TCU game. So he got better, and he's young, so he still has that upside. So I can understand why you would take him in the first.
Okay, we have a little game here that me and Ryan play. It's called Dollar Bet.
Uh-oh. Emory's about to lose some money.
I'll bet you $1 that he goes in the first round.
Don't take that.
Wrong question. The question is, would I take him in the first round? Will he go in the first round? That's 2 different questions.
Okay.
I'm a smart guy.
Do you think he's going to go in the first round?
Yes, he's going to go in the first round.
But you think whoever takes him is making a mistake?
Not a mistake. It's I would say I would go in a different direction, but I would also probably can make a case for 4 or 5 quarterbacks.
Oh, you're going to say you can say my dude's name?
Jordan Travis?
Spencer Rattler.
That was my QB3. since Ben.
So let's talk about some of the things Emory said before we got to the Spencer Rattler part. So he talked about the TCU game.
Wait.
There you go. We talked about the TCU game, which was the 2022 season, and JJ told us that the two bad throws are the ones he wanted to. Unfortunately, they went back, but he had a lot of great throws in that game, and that's the one you refer to often. And also, as Emory mentioned, the 15 throws a game, and you mentioned the Bowling Green game in 2023, in which he threw 3 terrible interceptions. He said he had to understand what he needed to do, and by that he meant I can't predetermine that, okay, I have to have 75% completion. I can't make the mistakes. I just have to go out there and play. And after that happened, it felt like he sort of turned the corner.
What do you want me to say? I've been on the JJ train, and just watch the throw in the Ohio State game when he threw it between 3 defenders for a touchdown.
I don't think he saw 2 of them, but it was a great throw nonetheless.
Okay, now you're going to criticize him for making a great throw.
So how high does he go?
I think he's top 15.
That's fair.
And you've been on the Drake May train for a while. Would you draft him over Drake May?
No.
Over Jane Daniels?
No.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, we're in the ballpark. All right, speaking of Drake May, you got to speak with him this morning. And does he have the fire in the belly, to borrow a Pete Prisco phrase, to be a leader of men on a football field?
Yeah, no, I think he does. He's been training with Phillip Rivers, talked about him, but it was funny when we went through Build the Best Quarterback model. Phillip Rivers wasn't in there, so.
Oh boy, that's going to be
But we did
embarrassing.
share a common hobby of pickleball. So
do you think he could beat him in pickleball?
He may have a little bit more range than I do right
bit,
now.
Okay.
But I will hit him with the ball. I guarantee you that. It may be over the yard if it doesn't hit him, but he's going to get hit.
I'm going to switch things up here. Debo just gave us more breaking news as we're doing this live, and by the time you listen to this, you'll already know the results, but I'm eager to see your face, Rick. Ben Sennett, 40-inch vertical, 4.68 40.
I'm good.
Top 50.
Yes.
Top 40.
Yes.
Top 32?
No.
Okay. All right. But he's your tight end 2 ahead of Jatavian Sanders?
Yes.
Okay.
Since day one.
Okay. All right. Jeez, oh, peace. Okay. Drake May, what do you think about him? I mean, for the longest time in the fall, it was QB2, maybe even pushing Caleb for QB1. And now, and Emory, you and I have been talking about this since the fall. I've talked to Rick about it. We talked to our colleague Lijay Doozle about it. Jaden Daniels has been my QB2 for a while. And where are you on Drake May, where he stacks up with these other quarterbacks?
He's my QB5. And for me, Drake May is someone when you're watching him play.
He was grumbling.
I know. I see him. He got the twitch going. You always want to see something more. You'll watch him, let's say the Clemson game. First quarter, fantastic. Like, okay, that's a great throw. That's a great job moving the ball down the field. Then he goes ice cold for the rest of the game. You want to see him find that level of consistency at the high level over the course of a game, over the course of a season. I know quarterback wins is not a stat, but I need you not to lose to Virginia. I need you to really blow out Florida A&M. I really need you to dominate in these games that you're supposed to dominate in, and not be back and forth. There are some throws in the game where you're like, man, you need to hit that. And that's where, for me, the Justin Herbert comparison comes in, because we've seen Herbert go through that this year where you're missing potential touchdowns on the easier throws that you should hit if you're an elite player. Second-round type talent for me, good starter on that Tannehill Herbert comparison, and those that know my Herbert, I wasn't as high on Herbert. I think he's another one that you kind of waiting for. What's the it for him? So second round type talent, but yeah, he'll go in the first round. I won't lose $1. I won't lose $2. But I like Drake May as an athlete, and I will say this: he has the ability. He knows he's an athlete, and he will take off and run more so than Herbert, and he's more like Tannehill in that regard.
Okay, in the second round, according to GM Emory, are you taking Drake May, or are you taking J.J. McCarthy?
Drake May.
Over J.J.?
Over J.J.
Okay.
Well,
it's going to happen. It's just going to happen a lot earlier.
Exactly right.
What are you asking J.J.? I don't know if you talked to him about this on the set, but what are you asking Drake May, about the concerns Emory has? But why are you forcing these balls into tight coverage? Why are you making these poor decisions with the games on the line? What do you want to hear from him?
Well, I'm not going to make excuses for him because he made some poor decisions, but sometimes it looked like he was almost forcing the issue. He didn't have the same talent around him as he did last year. The offensive line was not as good as it was last year, and sometimes he did have done some things on tape that were overcompensating for maybe the lack of talent that North Carolina had. So, again, no excuses. He could have played better, but I know what I saw on his junior tape. I know what I saw live when he played against Miami. I just think this guy has some unique traits that is going to make him a pretty good player in the NFL.
Emory, in real life, on April 25th in 55 days, when are Caleb, Jaden, and Drake off the board? How many picks in?
Top 6.
Over or under?
I hope there are. I wish he was a GM because
You wanna
there are
call
only
him?
2 teams.
Top 3 picks? All the 3 quarterbacks are gone, top 3 picks?
Yeah, I do believe that.
No Marvin Harrison Jr. in there?
No.
All right.
Unless there's a trade. You're saying just no trades.
No, there could be trades. Either way, I think there might be a run on quarterbacks before they get to Marvin, even with trades.
Yeah, I'm going to say those quarterbacks are the
Yeah.
first 3 off the board
And JJ sneaks
in
into
the
the
second
top.
round.
JJ sneaks into the top 10.
I would say depending on what happens in free agency, especially in
that's
Atlanta.
True. That's true.
If he goes past Atlanta, then I think the next hot spot is probably going to be Denver, Vegas, in those areas.
Right. All right. We'll just breeze through Jaden Daniels, not because he's not worth talking about. We've talked a lot about him. Rick didn't get to interview him. I just talked to him. He's a great guy.
Debo benched me.
Debo pitched to. He was. You can watch on YouTube the entire interview that me and Josina Anderson did with him. But I'll just leave you with this, Emory. You're a Louisiana guy. You're a New Orleans guy. Jaden Daniels told me straight to my face that I am 100% faster than my wide receivers, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. And he said, make sure they hear that. And do you think that he's faster than those guys?
He definitely picked up that Louisiana lie. Like, we know how to lie fantastic. And so I just think, no, he's not faster than those guys. He's probably quicker, but not faster.
And Malik, you think I thought.
Do you think he's quicker than Neighbors?
I think he's maybe more elusive is probably the best word. But Neighbors, I think, is more explosive.
Well, we asked Malik Neighbors and we asked Brian Thomas Jr. and both said that they were faster than everyone else.
Of course.
And Malik Neighbors said, look, you can check the catapult data, and that's the little trackers they wear at every practice. And do they wear them in the games too? They probably do, right? So they can track everything they do. So maybe if they all run, we'll find out together. But Jaden Daniels, is he your QB2 yet?
No.
Still Drake?
Yep.
Okay. And where's Jaden? Is Jaden your
My QB2.
QB2? Okay, I think we're on the same page with that. And finally, I've talked about this to death because it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my professional life. My interaction with Spencer Rattler today. We know that Emory's a big Spencer Rattler fan. I love Spencer Rattler. And we were on the side of the set here, and Spencer came up. Never spoken with him before. He says, "Hey," he said to me, "Hey, thanks for having my back." And then he looked at Rick. He goes, "That guy? Not so much."
He must be an avid with the first podcast listener.
What do you think about guys reading their press clippings, so to speak? Do you care one way or another when you?
No.
Okay. All right. Well,
As long as it doesn't affect him on the field.
Yeah.
So there are guys that read their social media and press clippings and all that, and then if they have a bad game, I want to see how they respond in the next game. And if they continue to be in the dumps, then they can't handle or don't have enough maturity to move on and don't worry about what everybody else is saying about you.
In your defense, you came over and introduced yourself, and Spencer was fine. I actually said to Spencer, Rick's giving you a hard time because the last day of the Senior Bowl, you said Spencer
He had a really good Senior Bowl.
attention. Yeah. You just need to minimize the late game turnovers. But again, like Drake May, I think he was trying to do everything because there wasn't a lot around him because of injuries, and Xavier Legette was the only show in town.
But Spencer Rattler has not been as consistent through his career as Drake May.
But he's grown in terms of maturity and
yes,
Yeah,
I will definitely give you that.
And what do you love about Spencer?
I love the fact that he's had a pro career already. We saw the
He's played a lot of football.
Right, a lot of football. We saw the initial burst as a freshman, outstanding talent. Everybody's like, "Oh, you don't have to sign Jalen Hurts to a deal. You could just take, Spencer Rattler in round 1 next year." Then he had the bad sophomore season, and then he came back, transferred, started off rocky at South Carolina, and then finished strong the last 6 games of 2022. Played solid despite the issues with the offensive line this season. And I just like the fact that he is battle tested. Kind of, is Baker Mayfield a fair comp to what you guys think of what we've seen so far from, Spencer Rattler in terms of Buccaneers Baker Mayfield?
And he's a better athlete, I think, in space.
Who?
Spencer.
What is this with the Spencer train? I can't take it.
And you're going to love this. You know what Emory and I talked about earlier? We both agreed that Spencer outplayed Drake May in week 1.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm happy for you guys.
He's done. All right, we're going to end on a high note, Rick. You and I did a lot. Debo made us do all the social media stuff. We're social media stars, or social stars, as the kids call it. keeping it 100, Debo, is that how you say it? We're going to do a little game that we played with the players who had come through here. Are Emory and Rick each doing a oh, okay, we have to find a. Oh boy, all right, that'll be easy.
God,
find a consensus.
Another hour.
Uh-oh.
So we're gonna build.
I'm just going to just disagree to disagree.
We're gonna build the perfect quarterback prospect.
It's easy.
The 2024 NFL Draft version. We asked the players, and they were able to pick players past and present. Rick, I'll start with you, and we'll get Emory's counter and see if we can come to consensus. So the 2024 draft class, the perfect.
So we're just again, this is not clear. So we're just doing the 2024 kids, not anyone else?
Yeah, just 2024.
Let's build one with the 2024 NFL Draft quarterbacks.
Bold, italic, font.
Do you understand the rules?
I do.
Okay.
I do. If not, I could play along rather well.
Do you understand that Southern Illinois watches these and they think that your education, that you didn't go to class?
Oh, how about my master's degree from Ohio State?
Don't bring Ohio State into this. They'll never let us back in the building. All right, Rick, arm strength, the 2024 draft class.
Oh, this one's easy. Tennessee.
Joe Milton? That's
totally agree.
Okay, accurate, just arm strength. That's right. Okay. All right, we're agreement there. All right, Emory, accuracy.
I will go Caleb Williams.
I agree.
I agree. Oh, boy.
GM Emory
We're
Hunt.
having a kumbaya moment. Rushing ability. That's
Oh,
easy, too.
Yeah.
Come on.
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels.
Come on, Debo, make this tougher. All right, here we go. Toughness.
Rattler.
Oh.
Drake May.
So I have to be the tiebreaker?
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Go with Rattler.
Let's let Debo
Go,
be the
please go with Rattler.
What's
I
the
just
tie?
love this.
Okay, Debo says Rattler. So, all right, Rick, size.
Ooh, who came in big? Well, you got to go with Milton again.
Wait, over Drake?
He's bigger. He just says size.
That means tall and width.
I'll guarantee you he's heavier than.
But he's not taller, though. You okay with Milton's height?
I saw the dude at the Tennessee-Alabama game. I'm telling you, size, he's the biggest quarterback in his draft class. That's what the thing says. Isn't that right, Debo?
You were looking at Jalen Wright, the running back. All right, who do you think?
Hey, listen, y'all know I can get out this podcast without me bringing up somebody completely off the radar. Casey Bowman, 6'6", 235 from Augustana Division II program, home of Kenny Anderson, Cincinnati Bengal quarterback. Saw him at the College Gridiron Showcase. Outstanding athlete for 6'6", 235. Keep an eye on him.
All right, shout out to Casey. We're going with Joe Milton. But I'm glad Casey got a name check. All right, finally, thank you, Lord Jesus. Leadership.
Jordan Travis.
J.J. McCarthy.
That's a good
I
one.
can't believe I'm going to say this, but I agree. After we talked to J.J. McCarthy today, I'm a huge J.J. McCarthy fan. So to recap, Debo, see if I can remember. Arm strength, Joe Milton. Accuracy, Caleb. Rushing ability, Jay Daniels. Toughness, who do we say?
Rattler.
Spencer. Size.
I didn't say Rattler. Is it like a combo thing where consensus wins?
Yes.
Okay, just take my name off of that one.
His name was off of that one. Size, Joe Milton. And leadership, J.J. McCarthy. Way to go, J.J. All right. That is it. We'll be back tomorrow, according to Debo, on a Saturday, a special edition podcast, because the quarterbacks will be throwing. And, Rick, I can't wait to see what Spencer Rattler does.
I can't wait to do this from where we're going to do it tomorrow. There will be a surprise
location. And Emory's headed home. Emory, thanks for joining us. And we will see you guys tomorrow.